Soundcore's top of the line Space One Pro is here and we are confused.
How does it do against our much loved Space Q45 and our less loved Space One? Namaste, we're DHRME, Dutch hearing radically modified everyone. Alright, kicking things off with the design and build quality. In a nutshell guys, the Space One Pro is the winner in terms of design. The headphones at least. Let us explain. You only get two colors in the Space One Pro. You get them in white and you get them in black. The Space Q45 and the Space One, on the other hand, come in three colors. So one extra one. Yeah, you can trust our math. We're Indian. Now, the Space Q45 and the Space One are bulky, and that's one of the complaints we had with the Soundcore cans. But there's no real difference with the Pro. The big ring does create an optical illusion of a smaller size though, but the headphones still jut out a bit. The Q45 is a bit creakier than the Pro though, and the Pro feels really solid and well put together. Obviously the Space One, being the cheapest, is also the most hollow and cheap feeling. And you really notice that when you rub clothing or your coat against the ear cups, and you hear that within the ear cups. Not a very nice feeling. Now all three of them fold, so that's good, but the Space One Pro folds. It's like the yoga instructor of headphones. Namaste. It's a shame that the Q45 came with a proper hard case, but the Space One Pro comes with a soft pouch carrying bag, just like on the Space One. You can, however, buy a separate case for $35 or get it for free if you buy the Space One Pro in the first few days. And it does seem very AirPods Max inspired, right down to looking like a handbag and everything. I mean, sure, it looks different, but we have 5 issues with this curious case. Number 1, yes, you can get the case for free for early orders, but this isn't something we'd like to see. Having to pay for a hard case is no bueno. Number 2, less protection. Half the headphones are exposed to the elements. And number 3, the magnet on the flap isn't very strong, and it came undone multiple times for me when I've put it in my backpack and taken it out. And number 4, there's no place for cables. That's something we critiqued on the Q45 because it didn't have a slot or a particular compartment within the hard case, but at least it had a hard case where you could at least throw the cables in and it would stay there. Here you've got no such solution. And number 5, it's overall thicker than the Q45's case. Yes, the Pro folds, but it's still much thicker. And you really notice that when you put it in a bag.
Now we've still got all buttons going. That's really nice. The buttons kind of feel like metal, but not sure if they are. Anyway, they feel more solid than the Q45, which we also didn't have any issues with, to be honest. And they're a bit more raised on the Pro too, so it's a bit easier to feel where they are. In fact, I've had a few instances where the first press didn't register because I was just used to a lighter touch. You need to press it a bit harder. That's what she said. Now there's another tiny difference. The USB port has moved to the left ear cup and now it's next to the audio jack. The battery is now 40 hours with the ANC on, it's rated at, and 60 hours with the ANC off. And that is a downgrade compared to the Q45, which had 50 hours with the ANC on. But we'll happily take that because, well, we'll talk about ANC in a bit. But you also get ultra fast charging because 5 minutes gives you 8 hours, which is a significant upgrade compared to the 4 hours you got with the other two models.
All right, then there's the comfort and fit. We'd say the Space One Pro are more comfortable because there's extra padding on the headband. It's quite similar to the Space One actually. Rowan did have some issues on the crown with the older Q45, so we're happy to see that Soundcore actually improved this. Now the cups on the Pro are big and deep enough, but the Q45 has wider cups. And the cups are softer to the touch on the Pro, but in day-to-day use that didn't really make it more comfortable by any means. So overall, the One Pro is comfortable thanks to the softer materials on the ear cups and the headband. The way you adjust the fit is with a telescopic headband on the Pro. Now the Q45 and the Pro both have ratchets, whereas the Pro is a smooth adjustment system. It's weird because the ratchets actually feel kind of useful. Also, we like the Space One and the Space One Pro headband adjustment because there are no sharp edges to deal with, unlike on the Q45. Oh, and the cups on the One Pro can twist both ways, so it's very easy to wear around your neck and put on a table or whatever. The cups, on the other hand, do get warm. We test them in about 30 degrees Celsius weather. We're showing off because we don't get that very often here in the Netherlands.
Now, active noise cancelling or ANC. This is one of the best things about these cans. You ready? The ANC in the higher frequencies is very good. I had a neighbor drilling for a whole day, and the Space One Pro basically eliminated the drilling sounds. It was eerily good. Usually you have noise cancelling which is very good at low end, low frequency sounds, but this one covers the spectrum. It's a tier S, guys. It's a huge jump for Soundcore. Both the Q45 and the Space One were in tier B. On the One Pro, there's suppression across all frequencies, and it's very similar to the Sony WH-1000XM5. Yes, we're actually saying that. The Bose QC Ultra is still slightly better at overall noise cancellation, but tier S nevertheless. Well done, Soundcore. Also, and this is a big deal, the white noise on ANC is very low, which makes this your own personal bubble of quietness, one of those words. All three headphones have a 5-point slider, adaptive noise cancelling, and a wind reduction mode. And that wind reduction mode can be used with ANC as well as transparency. In ANC, the wind reduction does a decent job on the bike, unlike the Sony or other cans. Now, it turns down the wind a little bit in transparency, but also reduces ambient sounds quite a bit, but it is still usable in transparency mode for me, unlike a number of other cans. And although general transparency is good, with wind reduction, Kevin didn't feel very safe outside. So not quite the no headphones experience when used with wind. Now let's talk about transparency itself. It's tier A, guys. Again, better than the Space Q45 because it lets in more of the low end too. Very close to tier S in fact, but it's missing overall volume of the ambient noise compared to the Bose QC Ultra. There's a tiny bit of white noise, but almost negligible. It's much lower than the Soundcore Space One, for example. Now the One Pro and the One have a 5-point slider, whereas the Q45 has a slider and a talk mode. Not that we could really notice a difference. And supposedly one of the big improvements Soundcore is touting is that adaptive ANC is much improved, which means it scans the environment many more times a second. But we'll take their word for it because we don't use adaptive ANC.
Okay, in terms of phone calls, this one isn't for mumblers. The noise suppression is strong with this one, and not in a good way too.
Alright, here's a noisy mic test on the Soundcore Space One Pro with fuzz in the background. Here's the wind meter, and there aren't cards anymore. Here we go. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, icicle. That's testing. 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle. Ice, icicle. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle. Ice, icicle. Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Simply put, I simply wouldn't use it for calls. Simple. In noisy conditions, you could hear that my voice was heavily processed to the point that it sounded robotic. It's very unpleasant. In windy conditions...
Alright, so a windy mic test on the Soundcore Space One. The wind on the air, the yellow, when it starts to run. Ice. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Pop, ice. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Pop, popsicle. Ice. Icicle. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Ice. Testing.
In windy conditions, it was also extremely hard to make out what I was saying. Seems like the wind cancelling ended up cancelling my voice too. And to make sure it wasn't just my unit, we had Rohan do a test as well, using Android, whereas I used an iPhone.
Okay, the sound goes easy. Let's see if you can hear me. Pop, popsicle, ice, testing. 1, 2, 3. Popsicle, ice, testing. That's the sound code.
Nope, no dice. 2 units, same result. And you would think that it would be better in quiet conditions, but we've had plenty of feedback from others that we sounded like we were coming from a distance and it kept cutting out.
Popsicle. Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Even the voice seems like there's a high pass filter applied to it. Rowan said my bass was completely missing. in my voice. Hélas, they are not much of a pro in the phone calls department. Now, we've seen this before from Soundcore. The Liberty 4 NC had the same exact issue. Soundcore did fix it later with an update, but should you count on that? No. For the FUC mount, you get volume and mute control straight from the headphones. You can also change the ANC mode you're in while on a call.
All right, let's talk about sound quality, and this is going to be quite an interesting discussion. We used good old Vincent here to measure the frequencies of sound for both all the three headphones, so you can compare them as well. But let's start off with the basics, which is codecs. These come with SBC, AAC, and LDAC, as you would expect. So if you have an iPhone, the best codec you could get out of these is AAC. And for Android phones, you could get LDAC, which is pretty much available on all Android phones at this moment. You still do get a lot of extras. You get EQ presets, you get the custom EQ, you get Hear ID. Now, Hear ID is still there, and they claim it's Hear ID 2.0. So essentially, you're doing the same thing as before. You are measuring how you hear different frequencies. So it takes you through that first, and then it plays different tracks with different EQs, I guess, and also learns your subjective preferences. So ideally, this should be best of both worlds, right? Objective and subjective. In real life use, I found I did not get a great result. So I got a lower treble and a lower bass, which might actually be a good result. Anyway, let's talk about the sound itself now. So, all right, so this is our squig to measure different headphones and earbuds. You can also see the links in the description to see where you can find these graphs. So how this works is you select headphones on the left hand side, and these are the x-axis is frequency. So this is the lowest sub bass, mid bass, lower range, mid range rather, and then the higher parts of the treble and presence. So let's start with a curious thing that all Soundcore headphones seem to have. This is the Q45 with the ANC on. So it's a bit bass boosted, it's a bit V-shaped. This is it with the ANC off. Boom! So you see the green line here with the ANC off has a ton of bass, and I don't understand why Soundcore is doing that. But it could be a mistake or it could be a conscious choice. Let's look at the less old one, that is the Soundcore Space 1. This is it with the ANC on. It's bass boosted, yes. But look what happens when you turn ANC off. Boom! That's the red graph. It should be red because it's a warning sign. And what do you think they've done with the Space 1 Pro? So this is the Space 1 Pro with ANC on. It is more bass boosted than the rest. Yes, you saw that right. But what happens when you turn ANC off? Boom! So I'm not sure what Soundcore is going for here, because this ANC off sound signature, it's quite awful, to be honest. It's very, very bassy, and fine, most people won't be using this with ANC off, but something to keep in mind, especially when the reviewers out there who say these sound trash, they're too bassy. This is probably the reason why they're too bassy for most people. So always use it with the ANC on. Now let's check out the default sound signatures with the ANC on, because I don't care about the ANC off sound signature. So these are the three compared, and let's change the color for the Q45. There we go. All right, so the Q45 is surprisingly the least bass heavy of the three. The Space 1 is somewhere in the middle, and the Space 1 Pro is way more than the other two. So in terms of sound, Soundcore is going for a bassier experience here, and I find it really, really curious, because it's not the problem that they're going for more bass, but usually you need to compensate for that in some way, right? And this is the treble. And you see that the Space 1, it starts kind of going down a little bit in the treble, and more importantly, it's the ear gain region here where the Space 1 actually does better. So there is a bit more of a, presence of the mids and things like that. But overall, I found it a very curious sound signature from the Space 1 Pro. Do they sound good? Yes, with some tweaking. Do they sound the best out of the three? I don't think so, because all three have LDAC support. I must say the treble on the Space 1 sounds a bit too harsh for me, but on the other hand, I think that the Space 1 Pro goes a bit too hard on the bass. So overall, if you know what Soundcore headphones sound like, I don't think you'll find these to be too shocking in that sense, and there is EQ and custom EQ for you to fix that. But I had expected something of a different tuning, and I did not expect this. So it's essentially a very kind of a muffled sound, but also not quite, because there is this peak here on the treble. So it's an interesting sound signature, and you will have to do some work to get it to sound a bit more flat or balanced. If you're just listening for fun, these might be fine. So that's the sound, but it is not a pro in terms of sound, if that's what you were looking at with this price point.
What are some of the extra features you get on these headphones? Well, there's no wear sensor on the two most expensive headphones on this list. Yeah, you know which one does? The cheapest one, the Space One at $99 has a wear sensor. Unbelievable. Now, all three have multi-point support, so that's good. They can stay connected to two devices. There's also a device list in the app, but you cannot pull connect on any of these devices. And you get that feature-packed Soundcore app on all three.
Okay, before we get to which one to buy from these three, let's talk about why the Soundcore lineup seems so confusing right now. The Space One is the cheapest, but it has a wear sensor. None of the other two has that. It has a comfortable headband with ratchets, decent calls, a brighter sound signature. The Space Q45 at about $150 is the mid-tier. It has a solid case, worse headband, decent calls, and a less dark sound signature. The Space One Pro, the flagship, it has no wear sensor, this weird case situation, worse calls, and the sound is way too bassy out of the box. So if we are considering the Space One Pro to be the flagship, yes, it has improved over the Space Q45 for sure on some counts, better ANC, better build, better comfort, etc. But curiously, it's more similar to the $99 Space One than you would think, especially in the build department. It's got a similar headband, same soft pouch, but why did Soundcore not take over the wear sensor? Isn't that a basic flagship feature? These are the pros, right?
Now, we feel that Soundcore has taken a ton of steps back with the Space One Pro. There's no included hard case, there's no wear sensor, the phone calls are worse, the default tuning isn't better, and on the Space One Pro, the build and comfort feel better to the touch, but in daily use, it's not a difference you would notice. You're getting the excellent buttons and the app on the cheaper models as well. The only reason to buy the Space One Pro, excellent ANC and transparency. A quick disclosure, guys, thanks to Soundcore for sending out all of these headphones. They got no editorial review of this video, so you're seeing it at the same time as they are.
But we're also really thankful to our patrons and members, especially our lovely Tested tier members. A big shout out to our Fuckman tier members, the highest tier we offer, Gamma Panda and Paula, for supporting us month on month so much. You've been spacing out like a pro about this lineup, and we've been DHRME. Dui.